A real woman of God knows that her worth is not tied to the opinions of others, and certainly not to the fleeting affection or approval of a man. In a world that constantly tells us that our value is determined by how others see us, especially in relationships, it's important to remember where our true worth comes from. You see, our worth is anchored in the unchanging, unconditional love of God. As a woman of faith, she understands that no amount of attention, praise, or approval from any man could ever compare to the identity she holds in Christ. This foundational truth can radically shift how she approaches not only relationships but life itself. When you know who you are in Christ, you no longer seek validation in places where it's temporary. A woman of God doesn't need a man to complete her. She is already complete because of her Creator. She is whole, she is loved, and she is cherished by the one who knows her best. She doesn't have to chase a man to feel seen or valued. Her identity is secure in Christ, and no man, no matter how great, can add or subtract from that. I want you to think for a moment about what happens when a woman truly understands her worth in God's eyes. She no longer measures herself as esteem against the standard set by society or even by the men around her. When she looks in the mirror, she doesn't see someone who needs to be fixed or someone who needs someone else to make her feel whole. Instead, she sees a beautiful, strong, and capable woman, a woman who is precious in God's sight. She has a confidence that is not rooted in comparison or competition, but in the love and grace that God has poured out on her life. That confidence is magnetic, not because it's the pursuit of a man, but because it reflects the light of Christ that shines through her. Now, this doesn't mean that a real woman of God doesn't desire companionship or a healthy, God-centered relationship. In fact, she desires it, but she doesn't chase after it. She waits on God's timing, knowing that the right person will come along at the right moment, and that man will love her for who she is, not for what she can do for him or how she makes him feel. The right man will respect her, honor her, and cherish her as the precious child of God that she is. And if that person doesn't come immediately, that's okay too, because she knows that her fulfillment is not dependent on someone else, but on her relationship with God. This truth is liberating. It frees a woman from the constant pressure to perform, to seek approval, or to mold herself into something she is not. A woman who knows her worth is free to be authentic, to pursue her passions, and to grow into the person God has called her to be, regardless of whether or not there's a man in the picture. Her worth is not diminished by her single status, and she doesn't have to chase after someone to prove that she is worthy of love and attention. As we talk about a real woman of God and her relationship with men, let's remember that the most important relationship she has is with her Creator. She understands that His love for her is constant, unfailing, and unshakable. He is the one who calls her beautiful, the one who has plans to prosper her, and the one who sees her potential even when others may overlook it. And because of this, she doesn't chase a man. She stands firm in the love of God, knowing that in His time, the right person will come alongside her, adding to her life in ways that reflect His glory. A real woman of God never chases a man, because she already knows the one who has chased after her heart with an everlasting love. A real woman of God knows that God's timing is perfect, and she trusts that His plan for her life is far better than anything she could try to rush or force. It's so easy in this fast-paced world to feel as though things should happen on our timeline. We want answers, we want clarity, and yes, we want that romantic relationship to unfold right now. But a woman of faith understands that God operates on a different rhythm. His timing isn't just about the right moment. It's about the right preparation and the right conditions that align with His perfect will for her life. When a woman knows that God's timing is perfect, she becomes at peace with where she is in her journey, even if she's not where she thought she would be. There's a deep sense of contentment that comes with the understanding that God's plan is always better than anything we could orchestrate ourselves. A real woman of God doesn't need to chase after a man or push things to happen faster than they should. Instead, she surrenders her desires and trust in God's timing, knowing that He is in control of every aspect of her life. We live in a world that encourages instant gratification. We have fast food, instant messaging, and the constant pressure of seeing others' lives unfold in what seems like real time through social media. This creates an illusion that everything should happen quickly, and when things don't happen as fast as we think they should, it can lead to frustration. But the reality is that God's timing doesn't work on our clock. He knows exactly when the right time will come for everything, whether it's for a relationship, a career opportunity, or a personal breakthrough. A woman of faith recognizes that sometimes God's silence isn't a denial. It's simply a pause for her own good. In those moments when she feels alone, when the desires of her heart seem unmet, she understands that God is working behind the scenes, preparing her for something even greater than she could imagine. It's in these waiting seasons where she grows in strength, character, and faith. She learns to lean on God in ways she may never have if everything came to her easily or in her desired timing. But trusting in God's timing doesn't just mean sitting idly by. It means actively preparing herself for what is to come. While she waits, a woman of God stays focused on her relationship with Him. She works on becoming the best version of herself, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. She invests in her faith, nurtures her dreams, and builds a strong foundation that will carry her into whatever God has planned for her future. This preparation doesn't just benefit her in her own life. It prepares her for the right relationship when it comes. The more she grows in her faith and in her understanding of who she is in God, the better equipped she will be to recognize and cherish the man who will walk alongside her in that journey. There's also a sense of trust that comes with knowing that God's timing is perfect. A woman of God knows that the right relationship won't be rushed or forced. She doesn't need to chase after a man because she knows that the man who is meant for her will come when the time is right, when both of them are ready. There's no fear in waiting because she understands that she's not waiting in vain. She's waiting for something that will be worth every moment. And when that right person does come, she'll recognize them as someone who aligns with God's plan for her life, not just someone who fills a temporary void. She'll see the relationship as an extension of the beautiful journey God has been preparing her for all along. And when that happens, she won't be surprised. She'll simply know, deep down, that this was the moment God had been preparing for all along. A real woman of God trusts God's timing because she knows that in His perfect plan, every season of her life serves a purpose. She doesn't rush, she doesn't chase, and she doesn't settle. She waits with patience, knowing that what God has for her will come at the perfect moment. A real woman of God knows that true fulfillment does not come from another person, but from the deep and abiding relationship she has with her Creator. She understands that before she can give herself fully to someone else, she must first be whole in herself. Too often, in relationships, we are told that we need another person to complete us, that we're somehow lacking or incomplete without a partner. But for a woman of faith, this couldn't be further from the truth. She knows that her deepest fulfillment is found in God, not in another person's love, approval, or attention. When a woman is focused on her relationship with God, she understands that the love and peace she seeks are already available to her through Christ. Her sense of worth, her value, and her happiness are not tied to external circumstances or relationships. She has learned the beautiful truth that her soul can be satisfied by the love of God in a way that no earthly relationship ever could. This doesn't mean she doesn't desire companionship, but it does mean that she no longer depends on a man to make her feel loved or worthy. She's found her worth in the one who created her, and that's a truth that no man, no matter how wonderful, can ever replace. When she feels lonely, she doesn't turn to someone else to fill that gap. She turns to God because she knows He is the only one who can truly satisfy the longings of her heart. She spends time in prayer, in worship, and in the Word, knowing that these things bring her the peace and fulfillment that no relationship can. And as she nurtures this intimacy with God, she becomes stronger, more grounded, and more content. She understands that her worth is not dependent on her relationship status, but on the fact that she is a daughter of the Most High King. This inner fulfillment is not just a spiritual matter. It affects every area of her life. When she is fulfilled in Christ, she walks with confidence, knowing that she is loved and chosen. This inner confidence doesn't come from her appearance, her career, or her accomplishments. It comes from knowing that she is deeply loved by God, just as she is. She isn't looking for someone else to validate her or tell her she's beautiful, because she already knows that she is. She understands that God has already seen her and called her beautiful in His eyes. What's more, when a woman of God is truly fulfilled in Christ, she begins to live with a sense of purpose. She's not waiting for someone else to complete her. She's already living out the mission God has set before her. She's growing, serving, and pouring into the things that bring her joy and fulfillment. Whether it's in her career, in her ministry, or in her personal growth, she is focused on becoming the best version of herself. And as she does this, she becomes a better partner to the person God has for her, because she brings with her a fullness and strength that she's cultivated through her relationship with Him. This focus on fulfillment is also incredibly freeing. It frees her from the pressure of feeling like she needs to find a man to fix her or complete her. She's not looking for a man to meet her emotional needs or fill a void in her life. Instead, she's looking for a partner who will walk alongside her, support her, and grow with her in faith. The right relationship, when it comes, will be an addition to her life, not a source of completion. It will be a partnership built on mutual love, respect, and shared purpose, because she is already whole in Christ. A real woman of God knows that fulfillment is not something that comes from the outside in. It's something that comes from the inside out. She's found peace in her relationship with God, and this peace flows into every area of her life. She is complete, she is loved, and she is content. And because of this, she doesn't need to chase after a man or settle for less than God's best. She trusts that God will provide, and in the meantime, she continues to live a life full of purpose and joy. A real woman of God understands that setting boundaries is not just a form of self-protection, but a way to honor God and the relationships in her life. She knows that healthy boundaries are essential not only in her romantic relationships, but in all areas of her life. Boundaries help to define who she is, what she stands for, and what she will or won't tolerate. And when it comes to relationships with men, she doesn't hesitate to set clear boundaries because she values herself, her time, and her energy too much to let anyone cross those lines. She knows that a relationship should add value to her life, not drain or diminish her sense of worth. Now, boundaries are often misunderstood. Sometimes people think that having boundaries means being rigid or unkind, but that's not the case. In reality, boundaries are a way of maintaining peace, respect, and love in every interaction. A real woman of God sets boundaries out of love for herself and for others. She knows that by respecting herself and her values, she's also showing others how to respect her. She's saying, I know who I am, and I know what I deserve. And because of that, she doesn't settle for less than what God has called her to. She doesn't allow anyone to treat her in ways that don't honor her as a child of God. When it comes to relationships with men, a woman of God doesn't allow herself to be mistreated, disrespected, or taken for granted. She knows that she deserves someone who will cherish her, honor her, and love her as Christ loves the church. She doesn't compromise on her standards just to be in a relationship. She doesn't tolerate emotional manipulation, dishonesty, or any behavior that diminishes her value. She sets boundaries to protect her heart, her peace, and her faith, knowing that if a man truly loves her, he will respect those boundaries. He will see the value in her, and he will appreciate that she knows her worth. Setting boundaries also means understanding the importance of mutual respect. A woman of God knows that any relationship, whether romantic or otherwise, should be based on equality and mutual consideration. She doesn't give all of herself away to someone who hasn't shown the same level of commitment and respect. She understands that respect is not something that can be earned over time. It's something that must be given from the start. A real woman of God doesn't give her heart away to someone who hasn't demonstrated that they will treat it with the same care and reverence that she would treat their heart. At the same time, a real woman of God also sets boundaries with her own emotions. She is not someone who jumps into a relationship out of desperation, loneliness, or the desire to fill a void. She doesn't give her love to someone who isn't ready to give the same in return. She understands that emotions are powerful, and she doesn't let them dictate her actions. Instead, she makes choices based on wisdom, prayer, and discernment. She knows that a relationship that is built on God's timing and mutual respect will be one that grows and flourishes. A real woman of God also knows that boundaries are not just about saying no to others, they are about saying yes to herself. She says yes to the life God has called her to the peace and joy He has promised her, and to the purpose He has set before her. She says yes to a life that is free from toxic relationships and unhealthy patterns, and in doing so, she creates space for the kind of relationship that will honor God and fulfill His plans for her life. When she sets boundaries, she is not being selfish, she is being wise. She is being wise because she understands that the most important relationship in her life is the one she has with God. She knows that if she compromises her values or sacrifices her peace for a man, she's not only dishonoring herself, but she's also dishonoring God's plan for her life. And so, she sets boundaries with love, with strength, and with the confidence that comes from knowing who she is in Christ. A real woman of God sets boundaries because she understands that she is precious, worthy of respect, and deserving of love that reflects the heart of God. And because of that, she doesn't chase after anyone. She waits for the right person, someone who will honor her boundaries, cherish her heart, and love her in the same way that God has loved her. A real woman of God operates not out of fear but out of faith. She knows that God's plans for her life are far greater than anything she could try to force or rush. In a world that is filled with pressure to be in a relationship, to find love quickly, and to fit into societal timelines, a woman of faith stands firm. She doesn't allow the fear of loneliness or the desire for companionship to push her into settling for less than God's best. She trusts that, as long as she remains faithful to God and His plan for her life, everything will unfold in His perfect timing. Fear is something that can easily creep into our lives, especially when we're waiting for something we desire. It's natural to feel uncertain about the future, to wonder when the right person will come along, or to question if we'll ever find true love. But a real woman of God knows that fear is not of God. Fear tries to control, to rush, and to manipulate circumstances. But faith, true faith, gives her the peace to wait patiently, knowing that God has everything under control. Faith allows a woman to trust in the unseen, to believe that what God has promised will come to pass even when it doesn't seem like it's happening right now. She knows that the relationship she is waiting for isn't just about companionship. It's about God's timing, His guidance, and His provision. She understands that a relationship that comes out of fear or impatience isn't built on a solid foundation. Instead, she waits with faith that the relationship that God has for her will come in His perfect time when both she and her partner are ready. This kind of faith isn't passive, it's active. A real woman of God doesn't sit idly by while waiting for her future partner. She continues to grow in her faith, to strengthen her relationship with God, and to develop herself into the woman He's called her to be. She knows that the right relationship will complement the life she's already living, not become the source of her identity. Her fulfillment isn't tied to another person. Her fulfillment comes from knowing that she's already complete in Christ. She is secure in her identity, and it's from that place of security that she waits, not in fear, but in faith. In the meantime, she isn't worried about being single. She isn't concerned that she's missing out or that something is wrong with her because she's not in a relationship. She understands that her worth isn't determined by her relationship status. She knows that she is loved by God just as she is, and she rests in that truth. The fear of loneliness or the pressure to find someone doesn't control her thoughts or actions. Instead, she uses this season of her life to grow, to serve, and to invest in the things that bring her joy and purpose. A woman of God also knows that when she trusts God's timing, she is spared from the heartache and disappointment that can come with rushing into a relationship based on fear or insecurity. Relationships built out of fear often don't last because they're rooted in the wrong motivations. A relationship that comes out of faith, on the other hand, is one that is grounded in God's love, purpose, and timing. And that kind of relationship has the strength to withstand the challenges and changes that life brings. Faith also allows her to live freely, without the need to control every aspect of her future. She can trust that God knows what's best for her, and that He will bring the right person into her life when the time is right. She doesn't need to chase after a man or force a relationship to happen. She trusts that God is working behind the scenes, preparing both her and her future partner for a relationship that will honor Him and bring glory to His name. A real woman of God doesn't live in fear of being alone, because she knows she is never truly alone. She is secure in her relationship with God, and that is enough. She trusts that when the time is right, the right person will come alongside her, adding to the joy and fulfillment she already has in Christ. Until then, she waits with faith, knowing that God's plan for her life is always better than anything she could try to orchestrate on her own. A real woman of God is not just focused on her own journey, she's also deeply invested in encouraging and uplifting other women around her. She understands that when one woman succeeds, it's a victory for all. In the same way, when one woman stands firm in her faith and refuses to compromise, it encourages others to do the same. She leads by example, not through words alone, but through the way she lives her life. Her actions, her choices, and her faith all speak louder than any advice she could give. This is not to say that she doesn't face struggles or moments of doubt. Of course, she does. But what sets her apart is her ability to use those moments as opportunities for growth, for learning, and for helping others. She doesn't hide her struggles or pretend that everything is perfect. Instead, she uses her experiences, both the triumphs and the challenges, to inspire and strengthen those around her. She shares her story not for attention, but to remind other women that they are not alone in their journey. She shows them that it's possible to live a life rooted in faith, even when the world around them says otherwise. A real woman of God understands the power of sisterhood. She knows that when women support each other, they become an unstoppable force. She lifts other women up, encourages them